Hey everyone, I'm Lady.
And I'm Alana.
And this is Spookery. We're here. This is the end.
Or
hopefully.
So we think. Yes, we see the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yes, but the tunnel might be deceptively long and we might not be there. But as far as I'm aware, according to how many pages I have left of my script, and I know page is just a number, but this is the end. Hopefully, this is the final iteration of my 12-part miniseries, Titanic. Oh. I hesitate to even call it a miniseries. It's its own season at this point.
It kind of is, yeah. But, here we are at the crowning jewel of the crazy journey that we've been on, ma'am. And it is finally time for what we all came here for.
Yeah, it's actually time to talk about what my category was about. We're finally at the conspiracy theory portion of the conspiracy theory episode. We're done with the context. We're here. I have curated my favorites and a couple that just kind of segue nicely from our last 5-part context saga that we've just gone through. There's some doozies. There's some wild ones. There's some maybes. There's some that you may have been picking up, and there's some that you should have been putting down. Ooh. But they're all here. Assorted nicely. They're all here. Hopefully. God, this is going to be the moment where I find out I've missed one, and I would be so sad.
Right? Like, we're going to get an email. You missed the most important one. How did you not talk about this?
I know. And then I would just be like, I'm going to turn in my Titanic badge. This is my formal resignation from the Spookery. I simply cannot be doing this anymore. I leave.
You know what's funny is that is my worst fear when I cover any case. But at the same time, I feel like with as much information as there really is about any given topic nowadays, I would not be surprised to hear that there is a completely untold side of history for literally every topic that we have covered. So if that is the case, so be it. And my one phrase to that, I guess, is bring it on. Because what else is there to say to that?
I think the other reminder is, as well as you and I, as even though we don't act like it, even though I don't like to acknowledge it, we are amateurs.
Oh, big time.
we cannot be expected to find everything. I do my best so that I can say that I've been thorough, but we're not professional journalists. We're not historians that have spent eons doing theses on the expansion joints of a Titanic. No, like we're just two gals around a beautiful spooky table, and I'm just here to tell you about the thing that I thought was cool. So
exactly, this is truly a passion project at its core, and this is just stuff that just gets us excited, and we just want to share it with each other and share it with you, spooky listeners. That's it. Yeah,
that's it. So but since we've been avoiding this for 5 episodes, I feel like we should just get into it. Let's just get into the conspiracy theories behind the Titanic.
Yes.
So I actually woke up this morning and I was like, I'm not pleased with the order that I was going to present these in. So I actually spent all morning reorganizing how I was going to present this based on how the last 5 episodes went and which ones I can see that you're veering towards and then which ones I want to save for the end. So I've kind of reorganized these. So I'm going to say that I don't want to call them probable to improbable. I want to call them more grounded in fact to least grounded in fact, I think is the best way I'm going to say it.
Okay.
They're all as viable as each other, but some are more like science conspiracy theories and others are just like, what the fuck is going on the moon? Moon may or may not be included. I don't know. Moon not included.
We're talking about the ocean. The moon's always included, right?
It's true.
They're tied.
By proxy. The moon is concluded.
Get it? It's not the moon and the ocean. They're tied. That's a good joke.
Thanks so much for coming to this episode of Spookery, everybody. I've been Lady, and this has been Alana, and this is Spookery. Goodbye. Goodbye, everybody.
Oh, my God.
That was really good.
I peaked. That was it. That's, Oh, my gosh. Sorry to take over your episode with my really good joke there. Sorry.
I know. How do I top that? I can't. Here I am trying to set up my conspiracy theories and you're landing those grade A dad jokes. Fuck. What? You don't need me anymore. You've evolved beyond co-host at this point. Just take over.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, ma'am, I will release it back to you. Boats.
Folks, how it's tied. Oh, fuck. I'm just crying in the corner. Don't mind me.
Oh my god.
God, you know my weakness is dad jokes. You know what you were doing.
I may or may not have known.
Okay. All right. So, grounded in fact. We're here. Theory number 1. So I'm starting off with our more simple science conspiracy theories because, that's kind of how we segued in from last week's episode. We're talking a lot about, how the Titanic was found, and it was actually in 2 parts. And, it was all, it's under the ocean, and it was there for a while, and we couldn't find it for a while. And then 75 years later, we could find it, which is great. Last week, we talked about the aftermath. We talked about... What did we talk about? Who knows? It was last week.
Lots of the boats and how they became boats and who made them the boats that they were and why they were the boats that they were.
Why they were the boats. Why the boats that they were. Yes, that's what we talked about. Everything is logical, and we've only just started, and it's only 5 minutes in, and we're already speaking in tongues. I love this. Yes, last week we talked about the aftermath of the Titanic incident. We talked about what happened to the Titanic sisters and what their careers had in store for them. We talked about them finding the wreck and the shenanigans all along the way. Yes. We also talked about the recent tragedy with the Titan submersible, very briefly, because I feel like that once again kind of deserves its own episode, but we did touch upon it. And we're completely caught up to modern day, so let's go all the way back in the Wayback Machine. Let's talk about science. Let's talk about science.
Science.
So, our first theory is about how the Titanic ended up in 2 pieces. So, I've kind of been mentioning this throughout the mini-series. I've been saying, did it crack like a glow stick or did it crack like an egg? And, this has been something that's puzzled scientists for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've ever really landed on a theory yet because we don't really know what's up with boats when they sink.
Yeah, what's up with boats when they sink? Do we know?
Not much.
Anything at all?
No. There's not much up. They go down usually.
Wow.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da.
We can't be stopped tonight.
We can't. The night is young. We've got 2 hours to go, and we're already 2 dad jokes in. It's only been 7 minutes. So, most eyewitness accounts of the Titanic disaster describe the Titanic as going nearly vertical before plunging into the ocean. So that's quite a visual. That's it's flat, it's no longer flat, it's down.
Yeah.
Which, in hindsight, is not what happened because we found the Titanic into 2 beautiful pieces at the bottom of the ocean.
We sure did.
And but for a very long time, until the Titanic was found, it was just believed that the Titanic had always gone down in 1 piece. It was always, very solid. This thing was built to last. There's no way the ocean pressure was going to get to this bad boy. Titanic was... she wasn't unsinkable, as we know, but she was pretty much, indestructible.
Yeah.
Aside from, the big gash at her side. So when the Titanic was found in 2 pieces, it was how the heck did that happen?
Yeah.
So even though now, modern day, we know that the Titanic cracked into 2 pieces, it's actually still most often depicted as sinking in 1 piece. James Cameron's 1997 movie Titanic. That's how it's depicted. It's depicted going down in 1 piece.
Yeah.
Most modern paintings and renditions of the Titanic disaster, because people weren't really taking photos at the time.
Yeah.
It was a 2-hour evacuation going on. It's all depicted as this this massive swing up, go down.
Yeah.
So the Titanic was equipped with something called expansion joints, and they're basically what allow boat hulls to breathe. So if you think about how things react. Okay, we're talking about science. Put your science hats on, everybody. Take off your conspiracy hats for a second. We're putting science hats back on.
Yes.
So when you think about how objects behave in hot and cold temperatures, it's commonly believed that, when something is in a hot environment, it expands. And when something is in a cold environment, it shrinks. Mm-hmm. Boats are no different. The ocean is varying temperatures all across. So if you've got something that is designed to stay in one shape and it doesn't have the flexibility to breathe, quote unquote, as it changes, water temperature, that's going to do way more damage.
Yeah.
So expansion joints basically allow ships to breathe, which is why sometimes when you're on, the ocean, you can hear creaking. It's physically the boat breathing, which is like a weird thing to think about.
Yeah, I hate that. Don't like that.
But it's natural. So like, that's how we open jars. We run it under a hot tap, you pop the lid off, it comes off. It's expanding. So the Titanic, just like every other ocean liner, has these expansion joints. Now, it's pretty widely accepted that the expansion joints had no contribution to how she sank. It was like, that's just, every ship has that. Didn't even come into play. No. But they were considered when we start talking about how the Titanic split into two. Was it crack like a glow stick, crack like a neck? We know she's in two pieces, so where did she split from? Like, where did that happen? Did it come from the top or did it come from the bottom?
It had to be... I don't know.
Did it have to be?
I don't know. It has
This is why it's debated. Because, like, it's one of those where, like, you start thinking about it. Like, of course she would split this way. But then, like, the more you think about it, you're like, maybe she didn't.
I don't know.
Because, like, for a long time, I was an egg crack believer. I believe she cracked from the bottom. And then I started doing research, and I'm like, maybe she did snap like a glow stick. And then I got back to, like, maybe she did crack like an egg, and I'm just stupid. And I'm just, even now, like, nobody, like, that's the point. Nobody can kind of agree. It's one of those where, like, we know she snapped in half. We just don't know where the weak point was.
Gosh.
So in 2005, the History Channel launched an expedition to the wreck site, as they are wont to do. And they examined each piece and fragment of the Titanic as best they could.
Yeah.
So her hull was analyzed, documented, had a lot of help from naval architect Robert Long, and they presented this brand new breakup theory, and they proposed that there was no way the Titanic went vertical because that's silly.
Okay.
She's already in two pieces. That didn't happen, like when she hit the bottom of the ocean. She didn't break on the ocean floor. She broke before.
Fair.
And truthfully, her bottom never lifted more than 11 degrees out of the water.
Oh.
So she was definitely not full vertical. She was like,
Yeah. Okay. Makes a lot more sense. A lot less dramatic, but makes a lot more sense.
Yes. So then it became a discussion of like, well, did the expansion joints cause a premature failure? And that's why the Titanic sank. So because it's now speculated that the expansion joints might have failed when the Titanic sank, they contributed to how quickly the Titanic sank. So since the front was filling up with water and she was listing forward, so she was tilting about 11 degrees, she had the expansion joints, like the expansion joints were basically holding up the entire rear of the boat. And if the expansion joints had held up, she would have tilted at a slower rate because, boats are heavy and that would have keeping everything average. And it's speculated that the survivors would have had more time.
Yeah.
So as they failed, she tipped faster and cost the Titanic her last two boats. This is Long's theory. This is not what we have agreed on. This is just what the theory that was presented. So in 2006, the History Channel sponsored another expedition. But this time, they didn't go to the Titanic. They went to her younger sister, the Britannic, who's living happily under the ocean in Greece. A little bit warmer. So in the Britannic, they found far superior expansion joints compared to her sister because she was a younger sister and technology had advanced in those few years between them. History Channel also partnered with JMS Engineering, and they rendered a simulation of Long's kind of theory and model.
Okay.
And they actually found that the expansion joints on the Titanic had overperformed during the Titanic sinking, and actually held the Titanic together much longer than she was supposed to.
Wow.
So basically the ruling was Harlan de Wolf, outstanding engineering, well done.
Yeah, okay. Like you said, that's not what they were expecting, I'm sure. So they were like, we're going to go prove how bad this was. And they're like, actually, wow.
Yeah, she was
Good
just
job.
amazing. She really was just a marvel of engineering. That's the conclusion that they found.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they found she was over-engineered. She was basically strong enough to handle any and all stress within typical service. Because, hitting an iceberg and sinking to the bottom of the ocean is not typical service. But, if it had been anything else, and if the iceberg hadn't ruptured that many plates, if only a couple of compartments had opened up, she would have been fine.
Wow. Makes it all the more tragic, doesn't it?
It does. And it's one of those, she was an over-engineered. The Titanic was an incredible piece of engineering, and we can't fault that. It's not like she was built hastily. It's not like she was put together with the scraps. It's not like she wasn't she wasn't cutting corners in any capacity. She really was an amazing ship. It was just a really tragic accident. Or was it? We'll get there. But...
Right? Can't make up for the human error, the faultiest element of all.
Yes. So it's one of those where, like, even the best laid plans, they'll fall to the wayside when, randomness is put into play. Hitting iceberg, not standard service for a ship. Titanic was overperforming. Basically, the theory that Long presented had to be completely adjusted, where they were like, hey, expansion joints, they had really nothing to do with anything. Good job.
Yeah, other than making the ship stronger.
Yeah, she was just breathing. She was breathing a storm. She was like, So even though that they did detect a failure in the expansion joints, it's a natural failure. Like, just the absolute physics of this ship being hoisted into the air because she was listing, like, the expansion joints, like, even over-engineered as they were, they just couldn't keep up and they just snapped.
I see.
So a new theory that's kind of working along with the expansion joints theory is that the Titanic actually scraped the bottom of her hull when she hit the iceberg. So not only did the iceberg graze the side, there must have been like a ledge or something that the Titanic scraped the bottom of her hull with, and that caused a little bit of weakening.
Which makes total sense. I mean, icebergs are gigantic usually below the surface, so I would not be surprised if there was a ton of ice just chilling.
Yeah, I mean, this iceberg, it was theorized to be massive, which we'll get more on that later. But basically, damage was found in one of the Titanic's boiler rooms when they were doing like a wreck survey. And it showed that the boiler room had actually flooded from below rather than on the top. So normally with what happens with watertight doors is that, they keep water out, but eventually the water like peaks over and it floods that way.
Gotcha.
But this one, the boiler rooms were showing that water was coming actually from underneath, which implies that there was some sort of breach. So the Titanic scraping her hull along the bottom and causing any weakness in the watertight doors that way, very feasible.
Gotcha.
So if the base was damaged as well, this would actually prove that the Titanic snapped from below, so she cracked like an egg.
Gotcha.
Which, is still being debated to this day. I still kind of like the idea that she was cracking like a glow stick. But as of right now, if that damage is proven to actually be had come from an iceberg, like if we can do some more tests and we can figure it out, this is all, modern science.
Yeah.
We might actually figure out how the Titanic snapped in half. But today, we still don't know.
We still just don't know.
Don't know. We just don't know. So speaking of watertight doors, our next theory has to do with that.
Yeah.
So as the story goes, 6 of the Titanic watertight compartments flooded. That's why she listed so quickly to the front. Her front 6 compartments were just full of water. Yeah. So we've discussed all that. So this theory that's kind of been floating around is that if the Titanic had left her watertight doors open instead of shutting them and stopping them from spreading to the next 6, the Titanic would have flooded equally and she would have floated for longer because the intake of water would not have been so bad. So my first thought with this theory is that if she's flooding all around, it doesn't matter where she's flooding, she's going down because water is getting in regardless. That's kind of how watertight doors work. But what do I know? I just worked on ships for a year and I'm not that kind of engineer.
Yeah.
What do I know? So this first kind of conflicting piece of information with this theory is that it kind of comes from her design. Her front compartments were designed to be naturally watertight, so water really couldn't get in or out without significant damage to the hull. So if the back of her ship had been damaged, it wouldn't have mattered if the watertight doors had closed. Like, they were watertight compartments. Like, they needed damage for water to get in. And so because she was hit in the front, that was the only way water was getting in.
Gotcha.
And that really wouldn't have helped with the list. If she had hit her butt, she would have listed backwards, and I think that would probably have been more detrimental. Calculations were later done to see if this theory was at all viable, and it came back with the conclusion that any flooding in Boiler Room 4, which is the center of the Titanic, would have resulted in immediate capsizing, and if the doors had remained open, that would have happened for sure, and the Titanic would have sunk about 30 minutes earlier than she actually did. So leaving the watertight doors open would have been more detrimental.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes. So on top of that, Boiler Room 4, if it flooded, we would have capsized immediately. Boiler Room 4 was also the main source of power. So if the Boiler Room 4 had flooded, they just let the water in, she would have lost all of her lighting 70 minutes after the collision. And that would have plunged all rescue efforts and, evacuation into complete darkness because there was nothing going on except for, flares.
Yeah.
So really not viable. Basically, they were like, everyone did everything right. Yeah. these calculations were later backed up on the Discovery Channel in 1998 in a documentary called Titanic: Secrets Revealed. And look, I have no reason to doubt 1998 Discovery Channel, so I'm going to say that always close your watertight compartments.
Yeah. I like you said, it sounds like, ooh, that could be it, but no.
Yeah. So this one, we're starting to get into context town.
Okay.
So if you remember way back in episode 3, when we actually finally started talking about the Titanic, I mentioned that a fire on board started right before her maiden voyage. Mm-hmm. So it burned for 10 days into her voyage, to be exact.
What?
Yeah, so the fire started before she's started on her maiden voyage, and it burned for 10 days after it started, and it was only put out like a day before she sunk.
Like they were just like walking past it for a few days and they're just like, yeah, that's on fire. We'll get it to it eventually.
But do you remember it was a coal fire? So the coal in her boiler rooms ignited. Oh. And basically the only way you can put it out is you shovel it into the boiler and use it, or you hose it down. That's kind of like the only way you put it out. And like this thing is just, it's living in a fuel source, so it's kind of hard to deal with.
Yeah, okay.
It's not like it was next to the guest and they were like, and yes, that's the Titanic fire.
Well, I forgot. I imagined it on the poop deck and they're just walking past it and they're just like, yeah, that's the fire. They're going to get to it eventually. Just stand your distance.
They're just like, yes, Margaret, that dinner was absolutely delightful. Would you like to retire for the evening and watch the Titanic fire?
Yes. That's
I hear they're extinguishing it on the 3rd day of the cruise. I mean, honestly, though, if I joined a cruise and that was a featured event where they just had a bonfire burning and they're just like, yeah, that's just our fire. And I'd be like, okay.
It's going to burn for 2 fortnights. Like this.
Yeah, sure. And I would just be like, you know what, actually, sitting on the deck and watching our internal fire might actually be very calming.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, the recurring theory that comes along with the fire in the hull, which was real, is that the constant burning of the fire actually degraded the structural integrity of the critical bulkhead on the Titanic. Oh. So because she's burning hot and heavy every day, all day, every night, all night, this smoke and these temperatures, they're warping the inside of her hull, causing it to weaken.
That does make a little bit of sense. But tell me why it doesn't make sense.
Hold on, I'm not there yet. So, remember, the iceberg did not pierce the hull. We talked about this in episode 4. That iceberg dented the hull, and it caused her hull to separate.
Okay.
So it wasn't scratched open, it was dented open.
Okay.
And so the smoke from this fire may have made the hull more malleable, which meant that it was even easier to dent this hull out of place because it was basically being weakened from the inside out. So the outside was kind of holding, but there was nothing kind of backing it up.
Yeah.
And I think I remember saying, like, the Titanic, back in the day, they didn't, most modern cruise lines, they have, like, a double hull, so they have, like, 2 layers of hull. Yeah. So if the outside one gets damaged in any way, like, the inside one kind of protects it. Gotcha. Titanic was before that. So they had double bottoms, where the bottoms were reinforced, but the sides were not. So basically, if the smoke is wearing and tearing and weakening the inside of the hull, that's it. That's your first and last line of defense.
Gotcha.
But as you said, it's not quite viable.
I know it doesn't make sense for some reason. Makes sense to my dumb brain, but that means nothing.
It's also been suggested that because the stokers were working around the clock to try and extinguish the fire, the Titanic was going over top speed because they were just like, we just gotta get rid of this fire. This fire is just going. So like that's why the Titanic, I think its top speed was 22 knots. They were like, she was going a little faster than that.
Okay.
Because, like, she's just burning. She's just burning.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like you said, if people are going 24/7, they're like, gotta get this coal out of here somehow. That's the only way out.
Now, remember, the fire had been extinguished by the time of the collision. So, at that point, the stokers are not going, we just gotta get it out. We just gotta. They're not doing that. The night of the collision, most of them were actually asleep. Okay. And so they're just like, we're gonna do a nice. So, truthfully, she was probably going top speed, but she's probably only going under top speed. So she's probably only going 20 knots.
Okay.
And the fire had been long extinguished before then. It's also speculated that the captain saw that they were going slightly over top speed because they were just shoveling coal like madmans.
Yeah.
And he was like, whatever we were doing, keep doing that. And they were like, okay, but there's not anything really to back that up. So I'm going to debunk that just flat out, being like, Captain wanted us to be on time, not early.
Gotcha.
This theory is classified as plausible. But it's not confirmed nor denied. There have been several attempts to debunk this one, there are calculations that the fire would not have weakened the hull enough to damage the structural integrity of the Titanic. Mm-hmm. And it's also been suggested that the smoke may have helped reinforce the hull because, it's like tempering. When you think of like iron and steel is just tempered iron, basically. Like it's reinforced iron. They keep melting it and they make it stronger that way. So there's theories that the fire in the bunker actually helped strengthen the hull, and it actually is why the Titanic took 2 hours to sink instead of 30 minutes. So there's a lot of back and forth with this one, but it is something to just keep in mind. Like, there was a fire, and it may have had an effect. It's a difficult experiment to replicate because we're not really using coal engines anymore.
Yeah, and even if we were, are we just going to start fires in them and be like, all right, boys, shovel away?
Yeah, and it's also, we can't really find an iceberg of the exact same size and collision and hit the Titanic the exact same way because we're not really sure how the Titanic hit the iceberg specifically. So it's a cool theory. It's a hard one to test, and it's still going around today. The other thing with this kind of theory is that because the coal was being constantly rotated because it was on fire, the coal may have helped center the Titanic when it actually had its collision and it was taking on water. So it was listing forward, but the coal may have been evenly distributed on either side of the boiler room. So rather than it listing left or right, which would have been devastating for the Titanic because that would have basically taken an entire row of her very few lifeboats out of the equation, the coal, because it was configured the way it was because of the fire, it kept the Titanic even and stopped it from tilting left and right.
Huh.
So there's that.
Man, so the coal on fire is a good thing.
Coal on fire, it might have been a good thing. It might have been a bad thing. We just don't know.
Well, so far for a lot of things, for the speed, it sounds like a good thing. For keeping stuff level, it sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this as well, it's myths kind of reinforcing conspiracy theories, so it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of weird theories, before we get into the more colorful theories on my list, I did want to quickly touch upon the Titanic's lifeboats. Okay. Because there's true story, spooky story with this one. None of the Titanic's lifeboats remain in the world. None of them.
What?
There is not a single, surviving lifeboat from the Titanic.
What happened to them?
I'm about to tell you.
Oh, well, okay. Fair.
I think it's weird that none of them survived because I would have thought at least one would have been preserved, for investigations or a collector being like, I have a lifeboat from the Titanic disaster.
Yeah.
Wow. But no, there's nothing. Only a couple of pieces and replicas remain. And a lot of them are actually from her sister ships because they were the closest thing that people could find.
Okay.
So when the Carpathia rescued the survivors, they actually brought with them 13 of the 20 boats. So they actually loaded 13 of these boats onto the Carpathia when she saved everyone.
Yeah.
Lifeboats 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 16 were saved, which leaves 4, 14, 15, and the 4 collapsibles behind.
Okay.
Collapsible B was abandoned for good in the Atlantic Ocean. They were like, fuck you, Collapsible B.
Yeah.
Collapsible A was recovered by a later ship with 3 additional bodies when they were doing all of those searching. And Collapsible C and D, after they rescued all those survivors, they were just to the ocean with you. So they just left those at the site for the ocean to claim.
Yeah.
The 13 rescued lifeboats were then brought to New York with all the survivors, and they were deposited into Pier 59, where morbidly curious scavengers descended upon them. This kind of reminds me a lot of the end of Bonnie and Clyde, where they were still on the car, and people heard the news that Bonnie and Clyde were taken out, and they just started clawing at things, ripping things and taking things.
Yeah, the scavenger mentality comes out immediately.
Yeah, that morbid curiosity scavenger thing. So that's what happened to these lifeboats for the most part. Nameplates got ripped off, seats, equipment, they were dismantled. We were basically left with 13 wood scrap piles once these scavengers were done.
Wow, that's horrible.
So what remained of the boats were inventoried by the CM Lane Lifeboat Co. of Brooklyn, where they had their value as salvage assessed. The lifeboat skeletons were announced as the only salvageable item from the Titanic, because it was the only thing recovered from the Titanic at the time.
Wow.
The lifeboats then remained in New York until at least December of 1912, when they just disappeared.
What?
Yes, yep, they just disappeared.
JP Morgan, where are you at?
It's over the head. There's no record of them being relocated or retrofitted. There's no paperwork. There's no nothing. There's a common theory that the lifeboats were stealthily sailed back to England on one of the White Star Line ships and then refitted onto the Olympic when she had her facelift.
Okay.
Because, of course, she was refitted to look more like the Titanic after the Titanic disaster.
Yes.
But this was later disproved. Truthfully, the reality is probably they were either too far gone to be salvaged properly, or they were ferried to other vessels other than the Olympic and refitted there. So it's either they were just left to rot, and rot they did, or other ships who needed them more desperately just took the carcasses, refitted them to fit whatever ship line they belonged to, and then they were just strapped on.
Gotcha.
At any rate, kind of spooky that there's nothing left.
Yeah, it is. I don't like that.
It's also, in a weird way, it's almost like, it reminds me of that White Star Line ship that like disappeared and all that was left was the 2 lifeboats. It's like the polar opposite. Where like we have the Titanic now, but there's none of her lifeboats left, like none of them.
Yeah.
You can find some of the lifeboat nameplates in a couple of the museums and private collections, so those were saved from, the scavengers.
Of course.
And there's a recreation of one of the lifeboats in display in Falmouth in England. There's also a less accurate one in Belfast, which is ironically enough, because that's where Harland and Wolff are. So yeah, there are places that you can see replicas and you can see the nameplates, but the actual boats themselves, nothing left.
Man, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
All right, now that we've gotten all the fun science jazz out of the way, are you ready for tinfoil hats and red string?
I'm ready.
Okay. Hold on to your horses.
They're holding.
First theory. First crazy theory. First real theory.
Okay.
There was no iceberg that sunk the Titanic.
Wait, what? Then what the heck happened?
There's no iceberg. There was never an iceberg.
What?
Instead, rather than slamming into a spire of ice jutting out from the water, the Titanic ran into pack ice, which is also known as an ice field.
Okay.
So pack ice is dense ice that like free floats in the ocean. It's basically, if you think of like a glacier, but it's more like a thin layer, but it's very dense. It's very strong, very thick, very dense ice that sort of floats in the ocean.
Okay. That's what polar bears work on?
Yeah,
Walk on. Walk on.
Yeah, they work on them. They're polar bear cars. Polar bears, the mechanics of the sea, Alana.
Yes. But that's what I'm thinking of, right? Yeah, polar bears.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Yeah, like if you ever see those images of like the polar bears just standing on these like drifting like packs of ice, that's basically what we're looking at.
Cool.
But this is dense. Like, it's not just like, oh, it broke off from the thing and it's slowly dissolving. This is like dense ice.
Ooh.
So when you think of like ships navigating the Arctic and they get stuck and like the ice like forms around them, like that's what we're talking about. Like this stuff is like, it's hard and it just keeps expanding.
Oh.
It's incredibly easy for ships to get stuck in pack ice because it's so dense. And it can do significant damage to ships when they're running into it full speed. If only we knew a ship that had run into an iceberg at full speed.
Oh, God.
So this theory was first introduced by Captain L.M. Collins, a former member of the Ice Pilotage Service, which I didn't even know was a thing.
The Ice Pilot Service?
Ice Pilotage Service.
Pilotage, wow.
Yeah, man. Look, I'm going to look into that one.
Yeah.
This theory was largely based on his own experiences navigating ice fields because he was an Arctic sailor, as well as witness testimony from survivors of the actual infamous Titanic sinking.
I see.
So the first piece to this is haze was apparently reported spotted at 11:30 p.m. the night of the collision, shortly before the collision. So the weird part of this is the entire night before 11:30, lookouts reported the evening as very clear, very dark, very calm, and no haze in sight.
I feel like they were not looking in the right direction or at the right thing. Like they're just looking up at the sky and they're like, no ice, we're fine.
There's not a single ice. It's also very dark. Remind that it's a moonless night. It's clear. There's no winds. There's no waves. You can't see any waves breaking. The only waves we got are the ones behind us.
That's fair. How do you not see ice? How do you not see it? I don't know. I've never been on a boat.
It's dark. It's dark, but they didn't see the haze.
That's fair. Okay.
Now, at 11:30, this haze rolls in. It's low sitting, and it's spread either side of the ship, so it's evenly across, ahead of you. It's like a ghost ship. Think of the fog rolling over the water coming towards you.
Yeah. Ooh, eerie.
Yes. So Collins believes that this, in fact, was not haze, but instead a large body of pack ice about 3 to 4 miles wide, or 4.8 to 6.4 kilometers in front of the ship.
That makes a lot of sense. Your ice kind of playing tricks on you a little bit, especially with it like maybe like bobbing under the water a little bit. Like it wouldn't be like a clear like thing. And so you're like, oh, look at it, it's just so hazy. And it's actually just like a shit ton of ice.
Yeah, ice. Yeah, as you said, ice reflecting like just the darkness and the water could be mistaken for haze.
God. Harry, I'm talking shit, but I'm like, that's so possible.
It's very possible.
So possible.
She's got her tinfoil hat on, boys.
Yeah, I'm here. I believe it.
All right. Every eyewitness of the iceberg had very different descriptions of the ice.
Oh.
So lookouts report the ice being as tall as 60 foot tall, or 18 meters.
What?
One of the quartermasters estimated it was as tall as 100 foot, or 30 meters.
What?
But the fourth officer, who was on one of the lifeboats, reported it as very low in the water. Now, Collins suggests that this is a very common ice-based optical illusion.
Ice-based optical illusion, man.
Yes. So flat sea, which it was, cold temperatures, which it was, and ice can distort the appearance of objects low in the water. And basically they reflect the height of whatever the light source that's shining on them is.
Ah.
Yes, so on the Titanic, the lights on her bow, which were about 60 foot up, or 18 meters, and almost as tall as 100 foot high along her superstructure, hence the difference in eyewitness testimony. They're like, oh, I see ice, but it's at my eye level. Oh, I see ice, it's over here at my eye level. And people who were in the water are like, oh, the ice is actually not that high. It's where I am.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, ice-based optical illusions.
Ice-based optical illusions. Huh.
Finally, Collins speculated that if the Titanic had in fact hit an iceberg of the described heights, the damage would have been far more substantial than just a gash in the side.
Yeah.
So when the iceberg was sighted, she quickly turned and slammed her starboard side into the iceberg. But if the iceberg had in fact been 60 foot to 100 foot tall, she would have flooded and capsized in minutes, never mind 2 hours.
Okay.
So slamming into an iceberg at full speed at that angle would have ripped the entire starboard side open and potentially severely damaged her superstructure, which that's game over, man. It's game over.
Game over, man.
It's game over. So this theory is disputed and not widely accepted amongst historians. The iceberg suspected to be the one that actually slammed into the Titanic has been photographed several times and is more universally agreed to be the cause of the accident. So we think we have photos of the culprit.
Wow.
So the Titanic iceberg is believed to have formed in 1909 off the west coast of Greenland.
Wow. It's crazy that they can track it like that.
Yeah, like this is like some weird tracking. Like we couldn't find the Titanic for 75 years, but we know exactly when the iceberg was created.
Yeah. What the frick?
So 85% of all North Atlantic icebergs actually originate from Greenland, and about 40,000 icebergs form every year. There's a specific point on the west coast called the Ilulissat, I think is how you say it, the Ilulissat ice shelf. And that's actually believed to be the birthplace of the Titanic iceberg.
Wow.
When the iceberg first formed, it was estimated to be a mile long. Over the course of its journey from Greenland to Iceberg Alley, which is nearly 40 miles from Greenland to Iceberg Alley,
Wow.
it would have lost half of its mass. So it would have gone from 1 mile long to half a mile long.
Jesus, though, like, God, that just is insane to think about. I did not realize that icebergs had such a journey to go on to even.
Yeah, I think maybe you have the same beliefs that I did. You know, when you think of icebergs, you're like, oh yeah, they just form in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a snowball effect. You know, they just roll around in cold water and then they just become tall.
Yep.
And it's like, no, they come from a place. They come from a densely packed place and then they break off and then they sail into the water and they melt.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like a giant, like you said, just like ice cube that just kind of gets dropped in and just kind of floats off into the long giant river. But
Yep.
that's an ocean.
That's an ocean, and then they return to the ocean, and the water gets swept back up to Greenland, and it refreezes, and it's an endless cycle.
Man.
Water, how does it work?
Gosh.
Yes. So it's also speculated that only a tenth of the iceberg's mass would have been visible above the water surface. So we would have seen, like, you know, a small spire, and then there would have been this massive, like, substructure underneath, which
Yeah.
would explain the damage on the bottom of the Titanic's hull from a previous theory.
It certainly would.
Yes. So at the time of the Titanic's voyage, April 1912, about 300 icebergs had made it into the North Atlantic route.
Okay.
Which was actually well above average. That was an unusually high number. Captain Edward Smith, the Titanic's captain, knew this going into the voyage. He knew that it was a very high-density iceberg situation. And at the time of the collision, it's expected that the Titanic iceberg was actually 2 years old.
Wow.
So 2 weeks after the collision, the iceberg would have melted. It would have just kept drifting south, and it would have melted into the warmer Atlantic water. So it survived for 2 years in the cold water, and then it immediately got just a little bit too south, and it was like, I'm dead.
Wow. It completed its journey.
Yes. On the night of the collision, one of the passengers, Charles Dahl, who was a third-class passenger, later claimed that from his lifeboat he observed 19 icebergs all around
Wow.
the Titanic. So there were a lot of icebergs. And like he observed that he was just watching it while he was waiting for the Carpathia to rescue him.
Yeah.
He observed how slowly the Carpathia moved and zigzagged between the bergs because there were a lot of them.
He's like, that's what we should have done.
Yeah, he later criticized the Titanic for going full speed through Iceberg Alley. He was like, that's how professionals do it, guys. It's not that hard.
Like, actually, though, that's some fair criticism.
I'd be like, if I was on a boat and it smacked into an iceberg and then I watched another boat, like, professionally zigzag around the same icebergs, I would have been like, wish I was on that boat.
Right? Especially after, like, the experts are like, wow, there's a lot of icebergs out here, like, way more than usual. And the captain's like, oh, yeah, I noticed that, too. And it's like, and you still were just like, full speed ahead. Yep, keep doing that.
Yeah. Arguably, where the icebergs were suspiciously more south than people expected. So everyone knew that there were a lot of icebergs out there, but they thought they were more north. So everyone thought that they were clear down there. So when they smacked into them, they were like, why are there so many icebergs this far south?
You're supposed to be more north.
They're supposed to be more north, which is why the Titanic like changed its trajectory, because it was supposed to go like south or west, and it went south for longer before going west, because it was like, we're going to dodge all of those like extra icebergs that are in the way, not knowing that they were more south.
Yeah. We'll go so fast just to dodge them.
Yep. Yep, we've wasted a lot of time going so south. Oh no, they were south the whole time. And that's what happened.
It's tragic.
Yes. So the iceberg was generally described as huge, towering between 50 and 100 feet above the water. It was about 200 to 400 foot wide. 5 days after the sinking, a sailor named Rehoric, I think is how you say your name, I'm so sorry. Rehoric sailing around a sailor named Rehoric, who was sailing on the MS Bremen, took a photograph of what he believed to be the Titanic iceberg, and I'll post all these photos on the Instagram. A few more alleged photos emerged, but this is kind of one of the theories that we'll never know for sure because the culprit melted into the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it was, like you said, it was around for 2 years. Chilling.
Yeah, just living its best life, best iceberg life. The Titanic hit it and it was like, I die now.
Yep, that was what I was here to do.
Yeah. I've got to look up like the average life cycle of an iceberg. Like, is 2 years an unexpected, or is that pretty common? Or was like the Titanic iceberg just like, I know that I will be needed in 2 years, and then my time will come.
Yeah.
Speaking of like weird things, our next theory is that God himself hated the Titanic.
Oh. Okay.
Yes.
It was just, the Titanic was born and immediately from birth was just cursed by God himself.
God was like, fuck you.
All right.
So.
You specifically, fuck you.
Yes, fuck you. So, a couple of reports came in from Harland and Wolff, and apparently, so remember, Harland and Wolff is in Ireland, and the majority of their employees are Catholic. Majority of these Catholic employees made a few reports complaining about the ship's project number. Now, in these reports, it lists the Titanic ship number as 390904. Now, I don't really see anything wrong with this number, personally, until you see it in a mirror.
Oh, no. Tell me more.
So if you read the number backwards, reflected in a mirror or in, the water, 390904 reads, no Pope.
No Pope.
No Pope. And that was a big no-go. It was a big no-go for these employees.
Okay.
So this on top of White Star Line infamously never christening her ships, which, at the time was like, what the fuck are you doing? Always smash a bottle of very expensive champagne into the side of your ships. Fuck's sake.
That was for God?
It was an offering.
Oh.
Yeah, so people would christen boats because it was an offering to the ocean gods to be like, please don't smash my boats to smithereens.
Makes sense.
And White Star Line never did it. Ever. So that on top of her project number being 390904,
Yeah.
could the Titanic have been sunk because God was like, fuck you in particular?
Yeah, I mean, well, at this point, it doesn't even sound like fuck you in particular. They were asking for it and naming it that number.
Yes, it also, could the Titanic have deliberately been sabotaged by these Catholic employees being disgruntled by this number and the lack of christening? You know, was the hull not made, you know, to code? Was the riveting a little lighter? Was the hull just not quite thick enough to survive a glancing blow to an iceberg?
Yeah.
The answer is no. That is not the case. That's not what happened.
I figured.
Yes, so the first time this number actually ever cropped up was in 1950, and it was created by the Titanic historian Walter Lord, reporting that people based in Belfast remember this number on her hull. Now, I talked about this earlier, I don't know if you know, but 390904 was not remotely close to the Titanic's project number. The Titanic's project number was 401.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? Remember that
Yeah.
little gem? Her sister, the Olympics number, was 400 because she was the 400th boat ever built by Harland & Wolff.
Duh, come on, guys.
Yeah, so 401, a little bit different than 390904. Just a little
Just
bit.
a little different.
Just
Yeah.
a little bit. She did have another number assigned to her, though, which is the Titanic Board of Trade number. So when she was certified by the Board of Trade, she was granted another number, which is its approval list, and her number was 131428, which is still not 390904.
It's certainly not.
It's certainly not, and I don't think reading either of those, like, if you read 104 backwards, you get Lon,
Yeah, I don't know.
which I don't think is an affront, maybe not.
Who
131.
started this? Why?
Yeah, apparently it was Titanic historian Walter Lord in 1950.
Huh.
You know? So it's there's not really any grounds for this, but it is a commonly spread conspiracy theory that God himself was like, fuck you, and smacked the Titanic into an iceberg for being an affront to God.
That is so strange.
Yes. In addition to this, a majority of the workers that worked in Harland & Wolff at the time were Protestant, not Catholic. So
What the heck? I feel
Really?
even more lied to.
So the theory really doesn't have anything. Really, I'm gonna debunk this one. That's my rubber
Yeah.
stamp. Just nope.
No,
The Titanic was not an affront to God, at least not in a way that we know.
yeah.
All right. Next theory. I think you're really gonna like this one.
Ooh.
The Titanic was sunk by a mummy's curse.
What?
You heard
What?
me. You heard me.
What? What mummy? What mummy? Who's mum?
I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna tell you. I'm not gonna show you. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
So, Titanic's hold. She had all sorts of weird and wonderful things inside her storage hold because she was a mail ship. She was transporting goods from the UK to the US. You know,
Yeah.
just Titanic things.
And you're telling me there's a mummy?
Hold on. Included in her storage hold, in her manifest, was a 1912 Renault Type CB Coupe de Ville. You know, the one in the Titanic movie where, like, Jack and Rose are getting all hot and heavy in the hand in the mirror.
Yeah.
That was real.
What?
That was real.
What?
Not Jack and Rose per se, but the car was there.
No, I'm the whole thing. It really happened.
It really happened. Sure. Jack and Rose, very real.
Very real. The most real part of the whole Titanic, actually.
Yes, maybe. Who knows? I wasn't there. Or was I?
This is the conspiracy theory episode, ma'am. Go with it.
There was a car on the
was-
Titanic, and it's
Yeah.
the same one in the movie. Well done, James Cameron. In addition to this car, there was a jeweled copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. I think that's how you say it, Khayyam.
Okay.
Which is a book of Persian quotes and poetry, and had just recently been sold in auction, so it was going off to its brand new owner,
Ooh.
who had paid a very expensive amount to get it.
That's such a shame, because I have a feeling they didn't get it.
I'm gonna be honest, it's at least 75 years overdue.
Yeah.
At least. There were numerous provisions. All the luggage that belonged to various passengers upstairs was down there. Included in this collection was an ancient Egyptian mummy.
Who? What? Where? Why?
So this mummy is believed to be the body of Princess Amun-Ra, whose body was about 3,500 years old and had been uncovered sometime in between 1860 and 1880.
Wow.
So a young Englishman by the name of Thomas Douglas Murray, who was an amateur archaeologist and frequent visitor of Egypt, was traveling to Cairo with 2 to 3 of his friends. It varies from report to report. A local salesman showed them the freshly excavated mummy, and Murray and his friends were like, I like that. It's real nice.
Wow.
The casket was described as well preserved, decorated in gold, and depicted with queenly features of a young woman.
So this isn't grave robbing at all. This is absolutely just...
No, this was legit sold. This was on a market.
Sure. Yep.
Yep.
You just bought a dead person.
Yep. I mean, also in the 1800s, that wasn't really uncommon. That's an episode all on its own, but like, we did that.
You know?
We did that. We just sold dead bodies. We turned them into paint. We ate them. We turned them into seasoning.
I have so many questions.
Anyway, that's a different episode entirely.
Yes. Moving on. So this guy just bought a dead body, brought it on a boat, no problem.
He was like, I really like this mummy, this really pretty casket. Examining the casket, the hieroglyph stated that the woman inside was a princess and high priestess of Amun-Ra, a name which he had taken for herself. Murray and his 3 to 2 to 4 friends drew lots to decide who would actually be the one to buy the casket. And Murray was like, I cheated. It's mine.
All right.
I rigged it.
Say no more.
So he renegotiated the price, and the casket was packed onto the next ship to England.
I can't believe they were just like, say, yeah, no problem. This is your dead body? Great. Where do you want it?
This is your princess. This is a princess and high priestess. This is yours. This is your dead woman.
This is your problem now. This is your curse now.
It's weird that you say that.
Okay, so this guy's just like, yeah, no problem. It's just 2 tickets, please. One for me and my mummy here. And they're like, oh, your mom? And he's like, no, my actual mummy.
You need to stop reading ahead. So, even before then, shortly after the purchase of the casket, Murray and his friends are like, we just bought a dead person. Really great. You know what else we should do? Bird hunting.
Great.
Yeah, when I think of going to Egypt, the first thing I think of is one, buying a dead person, and the second one is going bird hunting on the Nile.
It goes hand in hand.
Yeah, we're going to go bird hunting. So while they were bird hunting on the Nile, while their mummy is being taken to a ship to the UK, possibly, Murray's gun explodes.
What? It just explodes? What did he do?
His gun exploded, which caused severe injuries to his right arm. And his friends were like, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. That's real bad.
How did it explode? Guns don't just explode.
It just exploded. It just exploded.
Is this because of the mummy?
It might have been because of the mummy, but it just exploded.
Okay.
The gun just exploded. And so his friends, his 2 to 4 friends, were just like, oh, fuck, oh, shit, what do we do? So they make their way back to Cairo, but there were a lot of delays in the journey. So they were like, there's traffic, there's a camel backup on Road 2. Fuck, our friend is bleeding out. His entire right arm has been exploded with this gun. What do we do? And it actually, because it took so long to get back to Cairo, Murray's injuries got infected with gangrene.
No!
So to prevent further spread, Murray's arm had to be completely amputated.
Oh my God.
So while Murray's recovering, he did some digging on the history of his new prized dead person.
Oh, not physical digging, literally.
No. He just did some
digging.
Yeah, he did what I did with the Titanic. I just did research. So according to local rumors, the man who had actually excavated the mummy had also been inexplicably drawn to it. They were like, "Ooh, that's a nice dead person. Really like that. Really like that a lot." After touching the princess/priestess's bandages, he was later seen walking into the desert with a dazed look on his face, never to be seen again.
What? Yeah. That is some lore about a mummy if I ever heard it.
I know, it's a very specific piece of lore.
Oh my gosh.
But that was apparently what he dug up on the guy that excavated this mummy. So, feeling, like I need to get out of Egypt, 2 to 4 friends, we should skedaddle and take our dead person with us.
Yeah.
They immediately started the journey back to England. So,
absolutely, as you should.
On this journey back to England, all of Murray's 2 to 4 companions were slowly picked off one by one, either dying in a storm or were thrown overboard.
How is this not a horror movie?
The mummy's curse.
This is crazy.
The mummy's curse. All of his 2 to 4 companions, because it varies, river report, were buried at sea.
Jesus.
All of them. So when Murray finally made it back home, his family were like, you look terrible. And he's like, I know, but look at this dead person I got. Real nice.
Yeah.
So the casket was unpacked into one of his dining rooms. Strangely enough, all of the delicate and breakable objects stored in said dining room were either later found broken by accident or shattered mysteriously shortly after.
Oh my gosh. Chills.
Yes.
Literal chills.
The mummy's curse.
Goose
So,
pimples.
The mummy was then later lent to a young journalist who wanted to write an article about the Murray's discovery because he's like, wow, that's a really nice dead person you brought home.
Yeah.
Same day the mummy entered her home, her mother fell down the staircase in her house and passed away.
Get the mummy out.
So she's like, I would like to return this dead person. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. That's really not what I want.
No.
There's
Oh
actually
my God.
there's actually several more of these stories that exist that kind of follow this mummy. I'm not sure how much weight I put into them because there's a lot of them, and some of them
Yeah.
includes like engagements being broken off, pets like going mad with like rabies or just like their personalities changing.
Yeah.
There are reports about people contracting illnesses. There's a fair number of deaths tied to this thing.
Absolutely. This is all cursed, classic curse stuff.
Yes. Also, according to reports, any photos taken of this casket or of the mummy herself, all of the negatives either didn't develop or the images would come up with a screaming woman in the background.
Oh my goodness.
A couple more people were injured. Some were maimed. A couple others were cut. A couple were lightly bruised. And the list goes on and on and on. Basically, this is just a classic case of just terrible awfulness that followed this casket.
Seriously, that's a whole spookery episode all on its own. I want to know more about this mummy.
I'll get into it. This is it. This is the episode right here.
This is crazy.
So Princess Amon-Ra was quickly dubbed the unlucky mummy, and people were like, we really don't want this thing anywhere near us because she's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
So what do you do with a cursed artifact? You donate it to your local museum.
Absolutely, that's what you do. That's like you said, we need that.
Yes, so the princess was donated to the British Museum.
And what happened to it there?
The misfortune continued.
I knew it.
So night watchmen would report strange noises such as tapping, knocking, hammering, and sobbing coming from the casket. I see get your blood skeeves going on.
Oh God, got the blood skeeves.
Other exhibits were reported as being hurled around, so they were just being thrown around at night.
Okay.
One watchman died on duty from a heart attack, causing another to quit on the spot. And museum cleaners just refused to go near that thing. They were like, that shit's cursed. That's a cursed mummy. Not doing it.
No, you go clean the dead guy. We dare you.
You go touch the crazy, cursed coffin that's throwing things around and it's crying at night. No, thank you.
Oh, it's gonna be a no from me, dog.
That's a big no. I'm like, you know what? I think she likes the dust personally.
Yeah.
So the mummy was quickly moved out of the main showroom, but anyone who helped move the casket was met with bodily harm, and that was anywhere from twisted ankles to head injuries.
Oh my gosh.
The manager who ordered the move died at his desk mysteriously.
What the heck? Are we gonna be okay even talking about her right now? Oh my gosh, what have you done?
We're not touching her though, and if she's on the Titanic, I don't think we have much to worry about.
True.
At any rate, after the mummy was moved out of the main showroom, the hauntings in the main showroom died down significantly, but never really fully dispersed.
Oh my gosh.
Our boy Murray's bad luck never ended either. He was plagued with misfortune, which cost him his whole ass fortune, so he became broke. He lost his house and eventually his life in 1912, unrelated. Unrelated to the other thing that happened in 1912.
Just an unrelated death.
It was an
everyone
unrelated
faces eventually.
Yeah, it wasn't on the Titanic, is what I'm implying.
Yes.
Just in case that wasn't clear.
Yes.
So now the museum is kind of sick with its drama queen dead person. It's like, okay, you need to fucking chill out. You are breaking our other stolen pieces of museum artifacts. Like, that's just not a good thing. And basically, they held an auction for various surviving museum pieces, including our bad luck mummy.
Wow.
She was purchased by an American archaeologist who was also a bit of a skeptic and was like, I don't really think that this mummy is cursed. I think you're all just kind of like, something's up with this. So I'm going to take a look at this. And he arranged for the mummy to be transported on the next big voyage to New York. So the man escorted his new possession on board the White Star Line's brand new Pride and Joy, the Titanic, where she was stored in the hold. And the rest is history. The Titanic was the latest victim of the mummy's curse.
That is truly like a horror story all on its own.
Are you ready for me to debunk this one?
Yes, please.
So there's a few problems with this one.
The mummy never existed. No way. Are you serious?
So the first glaring
way.
point that comes in the form of the Titanic's cargo manifest. There was no mummy on board the Titanic.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
In fact, this mummy is still in the British Museum to this day on display.
Of course it is.
Oh, and also she's not a mummy.
What? What is she then?
She's just a lid.
What?
She's a lid of an inner casket. So she's specifically item number 22542 in the British Museum of Natural History.
Yeah.
And the lid hasn't left the museum since it was brought in 1889. There are also no reports of bad luck or causes of death belonging to it.
Okay, the marketing team for this lid is unbelievable. Like, they need to represent me going into my next job because they overrepresented what this lid was, but we all bought it. We're here.
Let me tell you how this spiraled out of control. So the mummy conspiracy theory was actually created by two Englishmen, a guy named Douglas Murray, the guy who got his arm shot off and got gangrene and, bought the thing, and a man named T.W. Stead. So as far as the legend goes, apparently there was a mummy that was brought into a young woman's house and then everything in that dining room shattered and exploded. But that was unrelated.
Oh.
They heard this story and were like, that's pretty cool.
That's a good story.
Then they go and visit the British Museum, see this lid, and they were like, obviously, this belongs to the scary woman that breaks shit. Obviously.
Oh
they
my
are
gosh.
the one and the same. There was only one mummy in existence. So, Stead... the other one that didn't have his arm shot off in a fake story, he was kind of our tall tale salesman, because he was a journalist. And he was also quite the controversial journalist at that.
I see.
He's most well known for writing an article about how he hired a 13-year-old sex worker for £5, or, the currency, not the weight.
Oh.
He was also very big into mysticism and spiritualism. He loved chatting with mediums and reported sightings on the paranormal. Just really loved the ghost shit. He should have started a true crime podcast.
For real.
So
Get in line, pal.
So Murray, our victim of, the gun and the casket, he's a bit more of a mystery. He was described as an Egyptologist, like the classic series that, we all had growing up. Mm-hmm. And he is described as someone who enjoyed purchasing mummies, though I'm going to say he was probably neither of those things, because he just knew a guy who could spin a yarn.
Wow.
So Stead and Murray manifest this wild tale about a wrathful princess/priestess/mummy/lid casket person. And they start telling everybody about this thing. They were just like, guys, you're never going to believe what I brought with me back from Cairo. And I'm just going to, I just show it to people. And it's my bad luck mummy. And it's like, I had to give it to the museum because it was just really plaguing my life. And they're like, it's so weird that you said that your arm got shut off in a story because you have both arms. And he's like, that's unrelated.
Don't ask about the arm.
Yeah, that's unrelated.
Oh my gosh.
Magic works in mysterious ways.
They sure do. Wow.
So they told several other journalists and newspapers, and these journalists and newspapers were like, okay, I believe you. And they started spreading the story themselves. So the real kicker is actually how it got linked to the Titanic.
Yeah.
Stead, our intrepid writer, journalist, mysticism, and just, overall weird guy, he was a passenger on board the Titanic. And he was on his way to New York to make an address at a peace conference at President Taft's request.
Wow.
President Taft himself was like, I love this guy. He can spin quite the yarn. And he was like, I will spin all the yarns on my way to this press conference.
Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, like you said, I'm sure he was a riot at parties.
Yeah, I'm sure he was. I'm sure he thought that everyone knew he was joking, but people just believed him.
Right. You.
I didn't. I never believed him for a second.
No, you to me all the time.
Oh.
You make a joke. You lie to me, and you're just like, she'll know. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, did you know? I just start spreading your bullshit.
And that's why I started a podcast with you. This has been the season 2 motto, right? Lady lied and Alana believed her. Yeah, that's it.
That's true.
That's it. That's season 2. So, yes, of course, now Stead is on the Titanic on his way to President Taft, and he's feeling real high and mighty. And so he starts telling all the other passengers about this mummy story that he's got. And he was like, guys, not only am I on my way to President Taft's peace conference, I am also bringing a cursed mummy. It's in the hold as we speak, and I'm taking it to a wealthy billionaire in New York. And they were like, okay, I believe you.
Yeah.
So now all of these other passengers on the Titanic are like, did you know that there's a mummy in the hold? That's crazy. And apparently it's cursed and shit. A guy's arm got blown off. Weird. And then the Titanic hit the iceberg.
Wow.
Yeah. So Stead was killed in the sinking. He did not make it. But several of his captive audience were rescued. And they were like, oh my God, it's real.
I would have been one of those people.
The mummy claimed its final victim, the guy who was taking it to New York, because the mummy was like, fuck you.
I would have been mad. I would have been like, our trip was ruined because this motherfucker couldn't keep his mummy off our boat.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, some of these survivors and witnesses started telling how they had felt ominous about a mummy being on board, and they started, telling this to people who would interview them after the crash. They're like, "What are your thoughts on the crash?" And they were like, "There was a mummy on board, and all this stuff happened," and so it inexplicably got linked. So even though there was in fact no mummy on board, people were like, "There was a mummy on board."
Wow. If that ain't crazy that we actually know the truth of the situation, because how many times has that probably happened throughout history and we have no idea that it was actually just, a silly little lie, silly little ha-ha.
We got very lucky in this regard that we do have the Titanic's manifest, its cargo manifest. But if we didn't, we would have just been like, yeah, I guess there was a mummy on board.
Wow.
There were also additional rumors about how the mummy was smuggled onto one of the lifeboats, because someone could get to the hold and grab the mummy and put it on a lifeboat without anybody noticing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my top priority when the boat's going down. Get the mummy!
Get the mummy. But they were like, we need to get it back to its rightful owner in New York. There's also belief that because it survived and got into a lifeboat, it has caused several other disasters, including an infamous sinking of the Empress of Ireland, which is another boat story that I'm saving for another Spookery episode.
Ooh.
But anyway, I don't think we've seen the last of this mummy, at least in Spookery. But there is no bad luck mummy. I'm saying it now. At least not in this situation. There might be. But in this particular case, Princess Priestess Amun-Ra of the Casket of Egypt, she is a coffin lid. She is still on display to this day in the British Museum. She is item number 22542. She's in the second Egyptian room. If you'd like to see it, she's still there.
Wow.
There you go.
It's a date. We'll go.
We'll go. I'm excited.
All right. So it can't get crazier than a mummy on a ship, right?
Right? So, our next theory is that the Titanic was sunk on purpose.
Okay, this is the one I've been waiting for.
This is the one you've been waiting for. This is the one that's been cleverly seeded in probably since episode 2.
Yeah.
Where you've started pulling at those threads and just going, what's going on here? Allow me to let you pull those threads a little bit further and let me tell you about the Titanic assassination theory.
Assassination. Who was the intended assassinated?
What?
I can't sentence. Who was supposed to be the target of the assassination?
Well, clearly it was all the wealthiest people on board the Titanic at the time of collision.
Oh, multiple assassination targets. I see.
Oh, yes. So, as you've rightly been picking at the strings, this involves our company owner, J.P. Morgan, and all the wealthy people he invited on board the Titanic.
This shifty guy.
This shifty guy. Let's talk about that shifty guy, J.P. Morgan. So, J.P. Morgan, around the time of the Titanic voyage, he was heavily pushing the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank, which is the central bank and monetary authority in the U.S.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, it passes, it's in existence, it's real, we have it today. But at the time, J.P. Morgan was really trying to push for its creation. So essentially the Federal Reserve Bank regulates all the banking policies. It supervises and regulates all U.S. banks. I'm sure Spookery Dad is going to weigh in with this one. He's going to tell me all about it because he knows everything about finance in this side, any side. Please, Spookery Dad, write in.
Yes.
Problem is, the creation of this Federal Reserve Bank was facing a little bit of, shall we call it, resistance. Resistance. So both the White Star Line and the IMM were having some serious financial difficulties at this time as well, with the Olympic, being smacked into by the Hawk. And other ships as well were also in need of serious repairs and maintenance. The Federal Reserve Bank would have been a significant personal boon to JP Morgan, and that might have been what he needed to bail the White Star Line out of hot water. Problem is, there were some very famous millionaires standing in the way. Names like Jacob Astor, Isidor Straus, and Benjamin Guggenheim. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think I'd forget Guggenheim?
Guggenheim, it's a great name.
Yeah, I'm like, there's no way.
Yes, these are also some of the wealthiest men in the world at this point.
Yeah.
Now, names like Rothschild and Rockefeller were already pro-Federal Reserve, and they were mucho influential. So there was no need to be like, man, those guys really bumming me out. They were friends. That's why there were no Rockefellers and Rothschilds on board the Titanic.
I see.
But the other three, well, it would be a shame if something were to happen to them.
Yeah.
These three wealthy lads wouldn't fall for just any trap. Like, also, it's very suspicious when all of the wealthiest people on board are, like, put into a place.
It is.
It's very suspicious. So they need...
Yeah, and then the person that invited them there is just mysteriously not there.
Well, hold on. We're not there yet.
You're right. Sorry.
So, yeah, these wealthy lads, they would not fall for any trap. They needed something decadent. They needed something luxurious, something newsworthy, where people would see them, and they were being seen. There would be lots of press. There would be a spectacular display of money. And how weird, JP Morgan Shipping Company, the White Star Line, was about to debut the world's largest, most luxurious cruise liner that the world had ever seen. And it was about to completely smash Cunard out of the water, quite literally.
Oh.
A fitting stage for such spectacular actors.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I mean, it's a good plan.
I think if I probably would have fallen for this, I probably would have.
Yeah.
Because I don't think JP Morgan was particularly hostile to these people either. I think they were rivals in business, but I think they were all like part of the same gentleman's club, you know?
Yes, like it was a respectable,
Yes.
may the best man win.
Yeah, it's like we may like argue in politics, but we're all very wealthy and we're all the same.
Yes.
That.
Yeah.
So, JP Morgan personally invites Jacob Astor, Isidor Straus, and Benjamin Guggenheim, as well as their partners, for a voyage that would go down in history. Not to worry, he assured them the Titanic was the safest, most luxurious liner in the world, and he would be there too, so what could possibly go wrong? We could all hang out in the rich boys club and just be rich together, and it's gonna be great. Come on my boat, guys. And they were like, yeah, that sounds really good, actually. We would love to be seen on the most spectacular boat of all time. And then a few days right before the Titanic is supposed to set sail, JP Morgan mysteriously cancels his ticket.
Huh.
He's like, actually, you know what? I will not be seen on my most luxurious ocean liner ever created.
But isn't it pretty standard of him to ride the first time on boats the first time they go across? Or was that not him?
No, JP Morgan is not one who was known. You're thinking of what was his name? Andrews, who was the boat's architect, and
Gotcha.
Ismay. Both of them would ride on the maiden voyages because they were the ones that owned White Star Line. JP Morgan owned the parent company IMM. So he was just like, I technically own this, but I'm like the grandpapa of the White Star Line.
I see.
Yes.
I'll support you, but from afar.
Yes. He was like, I'm really glad that all my grandchildren are doing well. And it was just this particular one. It's like, you know what? Wouldn't it be nice to travel on one of my grandchildren? Oh, something's come up. Real pity.
I see.
I cannot make this one. Yes. Now, the other three, unfortunately, are already en route. And they'd already made a spectacle of attending. They were already like, yes, we will be seen on the White Star Line. Of course we'll be seen on the Titanic. And it'd be in very poor taste to cancel a friend's invite at this point. Like, they were rich, but they weren't they weren't rude.
Yeah.
And then the Titanic headed full speed into an iceberg field. And the rest is history.
But wait, I have so many questions.
What were your questions?
Well, like, what happened?
So,
Why'd he cancel?
well, we're not there yet.
Oh,
We're not there yet. Hold on.
okay.
So, Titanic heads full speed into an iceberg-infested field. She was equipped with barely a third of her needed lifeboats. She had limited flares and a boat full of pesky millionaires that would never get a chance to oppose the Federal Bank Reserve. All three wealthiest men on the world went down with the ship. Less than a year after the Titanic sank, the Federal Reserve was created, and basically the U.S. was turned into an incorporated business. Now, there are some issues with this one, like all conspiracy theories.
Yes.
So, first of all, JP Morgan definitely did cancel his ticket for the Titanic. He was not there. Instead, he sat comfortably in France. That's where he was. Now, the reason why he canceled was actually never officially confirmed, but there are a few theories to why he canceled.
Okay.
At the time, France was changing its export laws to prevent Americans from exporting art treasures out of France. So one of the theories is JP Morgan dropped everything in his calendar to ensure that all of his very expensive, possibly stolen art made its way out of France back to the US in time before the law took effect.
I see.
You know, just rich person things.
Yeah, of course.
Another theory is that he was feeling ill and just wanted a spa day in France with his mistress.
Okay.
Maybe it was both.
Yeah, why not?
Maybe. So, Astor, Strauss, and Guggenheim were all on board the Titanic and all perished in the accident. But there is absolutely no evidence that all three of them were against the Federal Reserve. There is no evidence at all that they were opposing the Reserve.
I see.
In fact, Strauss was pro-Federal Reserve, and Guggenheim and Astor had never publicly announced their stance anyway. So, with Rockefeller, Rothschild, and Strauss backing it, it would have been a shoo-in anyway.
Yeah.
They didn't need Guggenheim and Astor. They were also not rallying people against the idea and deliberately trying to sabotage JP Morgan. Also, the idea of deliberately sinking the Titanic by smashing it into an iceberg is not the best way to deliberately smash a ship. I mean, like, if you want to guarantee that these people are dead, iceberg is not the way that I would probably choose.
Yeah.
I've never killed anyone, I promise.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You wouldn't question it, right? You'd be like, hey, that's the most convoluted way to kill someone I've ever heard of. That no one would do that.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what he'd wanted you to think.
Maybe. I mean, the Titanic took nearly 3 hours to sink in its entirety. And that's a lot of time for a rescue to arrive. I mean, the rescue took a long time still, but
Yeah.
Like that is not, like, if you want to guarantee that people are not making it, like, surely you would, like, if we're going to sink it via iceberg, like, are we not going to make sure it's one of those, like, 30-minute sinkings where we do as much damage as possible?
I agree. I mean, maybe, you never know. They was trying. They were going full speed into an ice field. He did his best.
I mean, he also turned. The captain turned. And maybe some people argue that if the captain hadn't turned, like, maybe the Titanic would have lasted longer because it would only have hit the front. But
who knows?
Maybe. Who knows? At any rate, the Titanic took nearly 3 hours to sink. Rescue did arrive. It's by pure happenstance that these three billionaires did not survive. Also, do you know how hard it is to ensure that three random men, who are also the wealthiest men on board, were actually died in the collision? Like, some of them were actually offered places on boats. They were like, hey, you're really rich. Like, would you just like a seat in this lifeboat? And they turned it down because they were just nice guys. They were like, no, give it to the women and children. I will wait my turn. Like, if it's my time, it's my time. I will go down with the ship before I take a seat for someone who could be rescued.
Wow.
You know, even the owner of White Star Line, Ismay, he managed to get onto a lifeboat. Like, it wasn't, like, it was pretty easy. So, now my point is, like, this is pretty improbable that JP Morgan deliberately sabotaged his pride and joy to kill his rivals. I'm glad that you picked up on these threads because it is mighty sus. But also, just like, why this way? Like, if you're a wealthy billionaire and you're trying to kill three other wealthy billionaires, surely you would invite them to a convoluted dinner in a Swiss chalet and then start picking them off one by one in an elaborate game of, like, cat and mouse.
Right? Come on. Like you said, this is just, like, the most convoluted and most expensive. Mm-hmm. Like, there's so many other lives and just so much can go wrong. And it's just like, what? This is not the way to do it.
No, this is not the way to do it. But that said, there are other reasons why the Titanic might have been sunk on purpose.
Oh, for the insurance money,
and now
travelers.
Now we're going to get into my favorite theory, the reason why I picked this case in the first place. This is the theory that was in my head, not realizing all of the ones we've talked about before even existed.
Yes.
We're going to talk about insurance fraud.
I knew it. I fucking knew it. I fucking knew it.
The real kicker with the Titanic insurance fraud theory is that the Titanic never sank.
What?
Yes. So this theory is known as the insurance fraud theory, or the switch theory, if you are familiar with it.
Okay, tell me.
As the theory goes, the Titanic and her twin sister, the Olympic, were switched on the Titanic's maiden voyage, and the Olympic was sunk on purpose.
What? But why?
All right, let's get into it. So, this theory was first introduced by an English author and conspiracy theorist, Robin Gardiner, in his book Titanic, The Ship That Never Sank? ?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what about a title? This book was released in 1998. So Gardiner grew up with the fascination with the Titanic, and he actually released his first co-authored book on the subject in 1995 called The Riddle of the Titanic. Cool. And this is where the theory first starts to emerge. So, if you recall, the Olympic was a beast of a ship. She was incredible. She was the longest surviving of all of her sisters. And she and the Titanic were nearly identical, both being designed by Thomas Andrews. And they were both built at exactly the same time in Belfast. In fact, they were only a few months apart, if you remember, and were only supposed to be launched 3 months after each other. Olympic was an outstanding success from the get-go. She was strong, she was reliable, she was the largest of her kind, and Cunard were already sweating their boots. Yeah. They were already on her maiden voyage looking for ideas for their next big thing because they were so intimidated by her.
Oh, geez.
But then the Olympic had an accident. So remember, on her 5th voyage, she tangoed with the British cruiser, the HMS Hawke, on the 20th of September in 1911. The HMS Hawke, the clear loser of the collision, still took a very nasty chunk out of the Olympic because the Hawke was designed to sink and destroy other ships.
Yeah.
Now, everyone marveled that the Olympic how well the Olympic handled the collision, and she destroyed the ship destroyer, and they were like, "Wow, unsinkable! She's incredible! She's like her and her twin. They're gonna go amazing places." The Olympic was in way worse condition than people initially thought.
Okay.
So 2 massive holes had been punctured into her hull above and below the waterline, causing 2 watertight compartments to completely flood. She limped back to Southampton on her own, and it took 2 weeks just to patch her back together well enough so she could return to Belfast, to Harland and Wolff.
I see.
Suddenly, the White Star Line's pride and joy is no longer the same ship. She's damaged. Once she made it back to Belfast, she was propped back up right next to her unfinished sister, and repairs took a grueling 6 weeks to repair. Parts and pieces had to be removed from the Titanic, including a propeller shaft, which caused severe delays in the Titanic's release, if you remember.
Yeah.
Gardiner's book also makes mention that the Olympic possibly needed 1/3 of her entire hull replaced in order to patch the damage caused by the Hawke.
Oh,
so that would have been roughly about 295 feet of steel, or 90 meters. That's an incredible amount of steel.
Yeah.
So she was released back into service on the 20th of November 1911, but only a few months later, right before the Titanic's debut, the Olympic was damaged again when she lost that propeller blade. Now she's back in Belfast. She's a problem child. She's falling apart. And she's causing huge delays in the thing that's probably going to save the company. Because remember, they're in a little bit of hot water right now.
Yeah.
We call this is a liability. So Olympic's not doing so hot. This is the starship. Everyone's praising her, and she's not the same ship.
Yeah.
Integral pieces of her were just popping off, and she was costing the company a fortune to repair.
Yeah.
Well, if the Olympic's behaving this badly after a toe-to-toe tango with another ship, what are people going to think of her identical twin sister who isn't even out the box yet?
Oh gosh, I can see the writing on the wall here.
So if the Olympic had one more mishap, either a collision or an accident, if something popped off of her by chance, people are not going to trust the Olympic-class ships, never mind the White Star Line. And these are the best of the best of the best. So if people can't trust the best, that's it. It's game over, man. So while the Olympic and the Titanic sat next to each other while they're both being, repaired and refitted, White Star Line and IMM have an idea. With the 2 ships right next to each other, you can't really tell them apart. A little bit of lick of paint here and a couple of very minor adjustments, and nobody would really know if they just switched places. So both the Olympic and the Titanic were insured for $5 million. And with the amount of money that the Olympic was sinking right now, $5 million would be more than enough to cover the loss. But the thing to remember here is White Star Line didn't want to lose the Olympic. There was plenty of really great salvage on board at all. She was just damaged, but they could save all of her luxury items. They could save all of this. They just wanted to be strategic about it. So, if they sail her into the North Atlantic and she hits, let's say a medium-sized iceberg, she'd take some survivable damage. Passengers would be completely safe, none the wiser. And then another ship would be less than 20 miles away, scoop everybody up. We just tow the Olympic back into the Belfast, whoops, salvage all her pieces, and then bam. White Star Line would get a fat check that would pay for all the damages. Olympic would be paired, profit just done.
Yeah.
Everything perfect. That's all we needed to do. We just needed to sail the Olympic into a medium-sized iceberg. Unfortunately, our new Titanic didn't hit a medium-sized iceberg, nor did she take survivable damage. There was not a ship waiting less than 20 miles away to save everyone, and the ship sank below the waves, killing 1,500 people. Worst case scenario. Now, the Olympic, after the Titanic tragedy, never had another issue. Ever. She had a very long, successful passenger life. She had a decorated military service, and she survived all the way up to 1935 when she was retired and scrapped. So, all of the issues that she was having at the beginning of her life, all the money guzzling stress that she was invoking, it just sort of disappeared.
And that's a true fact?
That's a true fact. And it's almost like she was another younger ship entirely.
Wow, they're like, who is this? It's almost like you're just like reborn, a newer version of yourself.
Yeah, it was kind of like, what the heck with like Olympic? Like, we thought you broke your leg, but turns out you're running the marathon after all, and you came first place. It's almost like you're your twin sister. It's crazy.
No one look over at the twin sister, though.
Yeah, it's a twin sister who's been hospitalized. So yeah, that's the long and short of the theory, right? And I love this theory. I love the idea that someone was like, we're just gonna make them switch places. We're gonna sink the Olympic, and we're gonna save the Titanic, and all of our money problems are gonna go away, and it's gonna be great. And unfortunately, it's not viable. But it's my favorite theory. I love this theory so much.
And the insurance fraud is just so prevalent, so I can see this happening so easily of people just being like, we already weren't going to get money for it. So what's the worst that happens is we don't get more money for it?
We just don't get more money for it. So first and foremost, the thing that really debunks this theory is that the Olympic and the Titanic had very separate project numbers. We talked about this in the God-hating theory.
Yes.
So Olympic was Project 400 and the Titanic was 401. That means that most of their parts during construction were stamped 400 and 401 so that they weren't confused for each other.
Yeah.
Multiple artifacts pulled from the Titanic wreck have come back with 401 stamped on their sides. So, a pretty good indication that this is the Titanic.
Yeah.
Items taken off the Olympic when she was scrapped all feature the number 400. So if this theory was true, that meant that the entire paneling on both ships were swapped, which would have been an arduous task on in itself, and they are saying that this happened in a couple of days.
Yeah.
We just fully rebuilt both ships.
Yeah.
Just in a couple of days.
No big deal.
No big deal. Installation to put these on in the first place took months, so feeling a little spicy about that.
Yeah.
Now, you could argue that the swap began right after the hot collision, but the Olympic was still having issues after that time period. So like, she was in Belfast for 6 weeks, was released, and then came back. Mm-hmm. And then people are saying, well, maybe the swap happened during that 6 weeks period rather than those couple of days after that incident. But then why would she still be having issues if, like, they had already swapped at that point? The Titanic's propeller falling off and then be like, classic Olympic. Feels weird.
Yeah.
So another piece of this puzzle is that the Olympic and the Titanic were twins, yes, but they were not identical twins. They were fraternal twins. Mm-hmm. So the core design structure was identical, but modifications were made to the Titanic that would improve upon the Olympic design because she was the first one. So Titanic was the superior twin. She had all of these upgrades that the Olympic had shown that weren't working quite well.
Yeah.
The Olympic and the Titanic were actually just as different from each other as the Britannic was to the other two. So, like, they're all very unique.
Okay.
Starting off, the Titanic was larger tonnage-wise than the Olympic. So the Olympic weighed 324,000 tons. Mm-hmm. And the Titanic sat at a very pretty 46,328 tons. So a whole 1,000 tons more.
Yeah.
Their B-decks were also very different. In her first few voyages, the Olympic's B-deck was a full-on promenade deck, so you could walk around the whole B-deck. And it went largely unused because her A deck also had promenades. And so they were like, why do we need to go to the second promenade deck when we can go to the first promenade deck? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's fair.
Yes. So on the Titanic, B deck was completely changed to allow for larger staterooms with ensuite bathrooms. So like they basically just took this promenade section out, and some of the staterooms just got private promenades, which is really nice.
I gotcha. Okay.
It also allowed for larger dining areas. The Olympic had some very successful restaurants, but the largest complaint was that there wasn't enough seating for all of her passengers. So on the Titanic, they made these restaurant floor plans much larger because they just took it out of the promenade. Second class lost their promenade space because of this, but they were allowed to mingle with first class, so they didn't really miss out because everyone was using Promenade A.
Yeah.
The reception area was also on B deck on the Titanic, but it was not there on the Olympic. And the D deck reception room on the Titanic was larger, and first class had more gangway entrances, so Titanic had just more accessibility. Titanic also had more carpeted floors, while the Olympic had standard durium linoleum. Classic linoleum. The Olympic was also more worn, the Titanic. She'd sailed at least 5 cruises at this point. She's, been tangoing with the Hawk. She's been smacking into piers. She's been, sailing. She's been doing the damn thing. Titanic's brand fucking new. She's never seen the ocean before. It's kind of hard to, make a brand new ship look old and an old ship look brand new.
Yeah, that's fair. And like you said, I think the rich people especially would be like, hey, this looks worn. Like you said, it's brand new is very different than even gently used.
Yes, and also keep in mind, Olympic had 2 massive holes shoved into the side of her. So you're going to see that patch job no matter how good it is. You're just going to see that these plates are slightly newer than the rest of her.
I mean, but would you though?
Well,
I don't know. I've never seen a boat. I've seen a boat.
I was about to say, I'm willing to call doubt on that one for you.
I've never been on a boat, but I have seen a boat.
I'm sure you've seen one. You don't have to be on one to see a boat.
I've seen. Yeah,
they're not codependent. Going back to Gardner's claim about how much steel it would take to repair the Olympic's damage, he said it would take 295 foot of steel or 90 meters. The actual reported steel needed to repair the Olympic was only 38 feet or 11 and a half meters. So not quite the devastating patch job that he was claiming it would be.
Yeah.
There's also no physical reports, photographs, or any reference to a third of the Olympic steel needing to be replaced. So, this might have just been Gardiner getting a little excited.
Okay.
There were additional scrapes along the side of the Olympic, but as I said, she was worn. She had pier damage. She had ocean damage. That's just what happens to boats. They hit things. It's purely cosmetic damage.
Yeah.
Now, if you're asking if the Hawk had done some internal damage, remember the Olympic had 2 punctures on the side of her. So the lower hole on the Olympic was caused by the Hawk's actual ramming blade. So because the Hawk was designed to sink ships, it had this massive fucking blade-shaped hull, and it was designed to pierce ships. So the bottom hole was caused by that. Her top hole was actually caused by the top of the Hawk hitting the Olympic. That's how deep it went in.
Oh, wow.
And, that's usually when, boats lose their momentum, is when more of the boat hits the boat.
Yeah, that makes sense. More stuff makes contact.
Yes. So the Hawk couldn't go much deeper than 8 foot into the Olympic. That was just the size of its blade. If she'd gone any deeper, the Olympic would not have suffered 2 holes, but 1 massive one from just taking the entirety of the Hawk into her side. Because, that's how boats work.
That's how boats work.
If also she had taken more of the Hawk on, Olympic would never have made it back to Southampton. Less than 8 foot worth of damage was very doable on the internal structure. The flooding was very manageable, and it was all very repairable.
Gotcha.
A lot of Gardner's claims also liken the Olympic Hawk collision to a car crash. So when you think of car crashes, even the most minor of fender benders, if it does damage to the engine, you're done.
Yeah.
Boats don't work that way.
Oh.
Boats are literally be built different. So it's actually not uncommon for ocean liners to be completely wrecked and unsalvageable, only for their entire skeleton to be remade and the ships to behave like nothing happened. That there are plenty of reports of ships that have completely lost their backbone, their hull, and it's had to be entirely redone, and the ship behaves for 20 years after that. They could just do that.
It's crazy that you can do that, but it makes sense. But because they're not cars, they cost 1 million times more than cars, and so it would be really silly if they got into one little fender bender and you were just like, okay, just throw away the whole thing. We'll just get you a new one.
Yep, we'll just completely replace it. That's also like a very modern technology issue where it's just like, oh, your Tesla's like slightly scratched. Don't worry, we'll replace the whole thing for you.
It is. It is a very modern thing. Everyone used to very much be about like repairing and, keeping like reuse, reduce, recycle type of a thing, but just more of like, hey, I bought this. I want it to work. And now we're just like, so like, hey, my refrigerator, the light bulb went out. No, just get a new one.
Now it's like instead of buying like a backup light bulb, it's just get a whole new fridge. Just get a whole new fridge. We won't worry about it.
Literally.
The other kicker of this is Harland and Wolff were actually literal masters at repairing ships, and as the ones that built the Olympic and the Titanic, they were like, we'll just do that. So like, they could do it no problem. The fact that they did it, like they repaired all of Olympic's damage in 6 weeks, was a marvel.
Yeah.
So Olympic repairs in very good hands. Not quite enough time to completely swap out the Olympic and the Titanic.
I mean, but what do we know? We're not boat experts.
Well, no, I'm not, but I have done my research. So, the Olympic was refitted to look more like the Titanic in 1930. So she did undergo some very significant cosmic surgery.
Okay.
This was when she was pulled back to Belfast, fitted with more lifeboats and more safety features because the Titanic was a disaster and we do not want that to happen again to our other only functioning ship at the time. This would also be a way to describe why the Olympic looked different after the Titanic disaster. They're like, well, this ship looks way more modern and way more safe and looks just like her dead sister, the Titanic. And yes, in 1930, a year later, they still were not perfect ones. Even with the upgrades that the Olympic received in 1930, they still weren't identical. So you kind of need them to be exactly the same if you want this to be an insurance, like a functioning insurance scam.
True. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, I would agree with that because there's pictures of everything and there's just ways to prove everything. But I'm like, there weren't that many pictures.
Well, it's funny you say that because in this weird particular time, White Star Line was very adamant in taking very detailed pictures of everything Olympic and Titanic. They actually hired professional photographers to come over. They completely photographed all of Olympic's damage from the Hawk incident. They completely took photos of how the Titanic was developing, all of its construction. They were so proud of these two ships. And they were like, take photos of everything. We will pay top dollar so that we can categorize and detail and organize and show off the construction of these two ships.
Checkmate.
Yeah, so, in terms of being a proud company of your two, newest ships, I think that's a great thing. If you're trying to commit an incredible, convoluted insurance scam, maybe don't take photos.
Maybe not so many photos. You'd like 2 photos, be like, look, they were very similar, but not quite the same. And then you can be like, no, but look, this is really the boat.
And they're like, look at how detailed we are with our boats. Look how different and the same they are. It's incredible. And everyone was like, this is a weird way to, do an insurance scam, but all right.
Yeah. They're really bad at committing insurance fraud, guys.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like they're not committing insurance fraud. But, what do we know?
What do we know?
Speaking of insurance fraud, let's talk about the payout. So,
yes,
both ships were insured for $5 million at the time.
Ooh, spicy.
They both cost $7.5 million to make. So, basically, they're being underinsured. The other thing is that full amounts are also they're not usually paid out. There's usually some level of, piece that's taken out. So even if the Titanic, Olympic, whichever one it was, had been damaged and not sunk, the damage required for a full payout would not be the amount that they would get to make / repair the ship. So simply put, the White Star Line would lose more money if it damaged a ship rather than gain money.
This is the worst insurance fraud scam in history.
Mm-hmm. In fact, most White Star captains, when they were assigned a ship, knew that the ships that they piloted were essentially uninsured, so they operated under that understanding just flat out. They were told that any accident would be catastrophic, and any action taken to prevent collision or damage would never be considered excessive. So, on top of that, Olympic's cost of repair would have been well within White Star Line's budget for repairs and expected losses, and wouldn't have made a dent in the White Star Line's profits of that year.
Well,
I mean, just
Well.
putting it out there.
Just casually.
The icing on the cake of this theory is that the Olympic and the Titanic were always in full public view at all times in the Harland de Wolff shipyard. It's an outdoor, large, expansive, open-air shipyard that most of Belfast works in. Like, they employed probably about 75% of the population in this shipyard. Never mind that they were just in public view the whole time. They were in open spaces. You could see what was being built. If a full swap had occurred, you have hundreds of thousands of witnesses. Never mind all the workers who were doing the work.
And that's what made it such a marvel. No, I'm just kidding.
And they did it. The insurance fraud was a complete success. But also, like, there was never a whistleblower who was like, hey, I think the White Star Line's about to commit an incredible insurance scam by taking all these photos and swapping the Olympic and the Titanic. Like, all of these workers were either threatened or bribed to within an inch of their lives, where they were just like, I'm going to take this secret to my grave. I'm never going to tell anybody about the fact that I helped swap the Titanic and the Olympic.
Quite literally, like you said, especially if the plan was for it to just, we'll just have a little bit of damage.
Yeah, it's just like, it's incredible.
It's a stretch.
And it's also like, if the Olympic/Titanic was sunk on purpose, that's basically a murder ploy. And I don't feel like the workers who would have been hired to swap them, I think once they knew what was going on and once they heard the news of what happened to the Titanic, they would be the first one to be like, White Star Line did that on purpose.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah.
100%. There would have been at least one person that was just like, this is crazy. There's never been a plan in history that has gone off without a hitch, with every person being 100% on board 100% of the time. There is always one person, at least, that is like, yo, this is mad. I'm going to say whatever that I need to say to your face. And then when I get out of earshot, I'm going to be like, hey, these guys right here, I got some shit going on. I need to tell you about it. So
yes,
there would have been at least one person.
There would have been at least one person, but every single worker in that shipyard took that to their grave. The entire population of Belfast was just like, yeah, we all helped that happen, and none of us talked about it. And it's just, it's the theory. There is no viability to this theory at all.
Yeah.
That has not stopped this theory from pulling a Muffin Man, though, and it is being spread like wildfire all over social media.
It's a fun conspiracy theory. I can understand.
It's very fun, but people believe it. They believe it as like legit. They're like, it's not a conspiracy theory. This is what happened. Like there are TikTok reels, there are Facebook reels. It's on Instagram. It's on X. It's on any social media. People were like, this is what happened. The Titanic and the Olympic were switched. And it's not true. Yeah. It's kind of sad. And it's also like, it's also basically blaming 1,000 people in Belfast that we committed murder. And it doesn't feel fair. So this is why we always fact check everything. Always look into everything. Don't let the Muffin Man get you. Don't let the Olympic Titanic insurance fraud theory get you. Always do your fact checking.
Yeah. Even with us, do your fact checking.
Do your fact checking.
We're telling you a story for pure comical, amazing, fun purposes, but we do a lot of fact checking because we want to make sure that we don't spread untrue rumors like this, you know? Like, it's one of those things that, like, it's fun to talk about. It is okay to talk about it, but as long as you know that it's not a factual thing.
Yes. So that's the Olympic insurance switch theory. It's fun. It's wild. It's not true in the slightest. Keep that in mind. And that, I think, segues us beautifully into our final theory, and probably our most asked about theory, maybe. And I think this is one that I'm sure is probably tickling in the back of your head.
Yes.
Could both Jack and Rose have survived on the board in James Cameron's 1997 movie Titanic?
I know for a fact they could have. Yes, I've done the math.
Spoiler alert for the movie Titanic from 1997. Although I'm going to be brutally honest, this whole miniseries is a spoiler for that movie. So, like, I'm sorry. That ship still sails out of Southampton. She's still heading for New York. She hits an iceberg and it doesn't end well. That's the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
So the movie focuses on these two characters, Rose DeWitt and Jack Dawson. Rose is a first-class passenger sailing with her mother and her maid and her fiance, and they're planning on getting married in Philadelphia for some reason. Jack Dawson is a third-class passenger. He won his tickets in a card game and was sailing by chance. It's very possible. I think there is actually a person. There's a real-life person on the Titanic who had a similar story. Now, Rose DeWitt was never a person on board. She's a fictional character. Rose's character is actually based on a painter, sculptor, writer, and actress named Beatrice Wood. She was born into a family of socialites and got a little bit rebellious. Jack Dawson was also not a real person on the Titanic, and he was not inspired by anyone in particular. But there was a J. Dawson on board. It's a fun fact for you. His name was Joseph Dawson, and he was one of the coal stokers on board, and he went down with the ship.
R.I.P.
Cameron said he wasn't aware that Joseph Dawson existed until the script was done.
That's fair. It's a very common last name, so I can totally...
Is it? I don't think I've ever met a Dawson.
Dawson's Creek.
I've never seen it.
It doesn't mean it's not common.
All right.
I know like 3 Dawsons. We just talked about them.
Okay. Yeah, Creek Dawson, Jack Dawson, and Joseph Dawson. Done. That's all
Exactly.
that's all the Dawsons you need.
Someone said name 3. There you go.
All right, I retract my statement. Done. At any rate, the Titanic in the movie sinks just like the Titanic in real life sank, and Rose and Jack end up in the Atlantic. Rose has got a life jacket on, and she's on top of a wooden board door thing.
Yeah.
It's a slab of wood.
Yeah. It makes sense that there's just a random slab of wood.
Yeah. And Jack's hanging off the side of the board, and he refuses to climb up in fear of capsizing the thing, sending them both to their deaths. And fans of this movie have feelings about this.
Oh, lots of feelings.
Lots of feelings. So the board in the film is massive. A lot of fans call Rose selfish for not making space. They call Jack an idiot for not climbing aboard. We've all heard this before. Everyone knows this. Even if you haven't seen Titanic, you've all heard about this plot in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, the show Mythbusters actually did do a deep dive into this in 2012. The result that they came up with was it was plausible for both Jack and Rose to survive under specific conditions.
Specific. Under Pacific conditions.
Pacific, they could have survived during Pacific conditions, but unfortunately we were in the North Atlantic, so this would not have worked.
But tis.
Haha, the jokes, they still run. We're only 2 hours into this thing, the jokes keep coming. So, things that are floating in water are subject to a thing called buoyancy. Now, have you heard of this?
Once or twice.
Once or twice. There's a thing called buoyancy.
Okay.
An object's weight is going to pull it underwater to some degree, and the water is going to actively push back at it because it hates everything.
Yeah.
That's basically what buoyancy is. If you think about a boat, the bottom of the boat doesn't sit on the top of the water. It's submerged partially. Mm-hmm. And then the water is pushing back up, and the weight of the boat is pushing it down, and that's what keeps it steady.
It's like the opposite of gravity.
Yes. Buoyancy. It's anti-gravity fighting back. That's not a fact.
I know. It's not. Don't listen to me.
So basically, like, as long as the water line doesn't go up like higher than the top of the boat is going to stay floating, right? Mm-hmm. So boats are designed with that in mind. You know, the weight, they take into consideration whatever the aspect of buoyancy is. You know, it gets submerged, things float. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. With this board, it's basically a flat boat, and it's under the effects of buoyancy just like everything else. Mm-hmm. The board itself was based off of a real piece of debris from the Titanic, and it was a door frame found above the first-class lounge entrance. It's actually speculated that this location, this door frame, is where the Titanic split into two.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. Back to theory number 1.
Wow.
So yeah, it's theorized that this actual piece of debris is from where the Titanic split into two, and it simply floated to the surface because it's made of wood and it's not being pulled to the bottom of the ocean.
Okay.
The board's about 8 foot long and 41 inches wide. And eyeballing it, I'd guess it's anywhere from 4 to 8 inches thick. 4 to 8. I'm not 48. 4 to 8.
Thank you for clarifying.
I know. I'm just making sure that nobody comes for me. The actual prop of the movie actually recently got sold for $700,000. So there you go.
Holy God, that's a lot of freaking chips.
Yeah, that's a lot of chips for a piece of wood.
That's wow.
So with Rose on top, the board and her are just buoyant enough to remain floating. Hence, she survives. There is also room enough on top for Jack to slide in next to her on board. Great. However, if Jack crawled on top, the weight of the two of them would have been too much and the water would have risen high enough above the threshold of the board and it would have killed them both. That's that. Now, I remember I did say it was possible for both of them to survive under certain circumstances. Mm-hmm. Rose was wearing a life jacket in that scene. So if Rose had taken off her life jacket and passed it underneath the board and strapped it under, it would have raised the buoyancy of the board just enough that they could have both sat on the board without it sinking. Now, this is keeping in mind that the life jacket is positioned perfectly, where like their weight is equally distributed on top of the board.
Yeah.
It also requires a bit of buoyancy knowledge, and when you're stressed and cold and tired and it's dark, and you've been told that don't take your life jacket off in any any conceivable venture, like that's the only thing keeping you alive.
Yeah.
I'm not really going to fault two 1912 young 20-somethings not to know, like, I'm not going to fault them for not knowing that.
Yeah.
But now you know that, dear listener, so spread the word. You can survive on this board if you take your life jacket off and put it under the board. Save a life.
Yeah. And then you just have to be the coal, be evenly distributed.
Yes. Make sure you balance perfectly on top of this board / life jacket, and also make sure that your board is exactly 8 foot long and 41 inches long, and 41 inches wide. Yes. Otherwise, this will not work.
Nope.
Tell them the facts.
Yeah, just food for thought.
Keep in mind as well that this does not account for other outdoor conditions. The Titanic is sinking, so it's disturbing the water. It's splashing things about. It's cold. They're both soaked. It's dark. Other people are also trying to climb aboard, possibly.
Yeah, he has to fight off the other survivors. That's what really he's doing in the water, is just kicking off all the other people that are like, let me on. And he's like, no.
Yeah, he's basically just keeping Rose safe. He's like, I'm taking you all down with me.
Pretty much.
So there's a lot of factors with this. It's also a movie from 1997. He got a lot of things right, James Cameron, so I can't fault him too much. And
it really pushes that love story. We wouldn't have the famous scene of her being, it's been 84 years. We wouldn't have that.
We'd have no memes. Memes would not exist without this movie.
It's true. So thank you, James Cameron, for inventing memes. That's the real conspiracy theory.
That's it. And welcome. This is a 6-part series just to explain how James Cameron invented the meme. Thank you so much. It's been 84 years.
It's been 84 years.
It's been 84 years.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that is all of my conspiracy theories. That's it.
That's it.
That's the story of the Titanic.
Man. Wow.
We did it.
We did it.
We got through 6 episodes, everybody. We got through 6 episodes.
We got through 6 episodes.
Oh my God. I'm so tired.
The look on your face immediately after you said that too was a look of just utter, like, I don't even want to say pain. It was just like...
It's the same feeling I had when I finished Bonnie and Clyde. Like, I was very serious. I told the story as perfectly I could. I ended my script, and then something just released. Like, a weight lifted. The spirits of Bonnie and Clyde left me, and then I just got hit with a slap happiness. Like, I couldn't think a coherent thought. I could see every color. It was wild, and now this has happened twice that amount, because we've now a 6-parter. I've been trapped in 6 weeks of hell doing this.
Oh my gosh.
I only finished the script this morning. And I just...
Oh my gosh. Man. This was an epic journey.
All 1,500 souls of the Titanic just left my body. Bonnie and Clyde, there were only 2 of them. This one was 1,500.
This was a lot. This was a heavy burden, man. You were in this world for a moment.
I was. This was half of Spookery, pretty much.
This is half of Spookery is Titanic.
But I did it. I hope you guys enjoyed my little mini deep dive. I know the context was long. I know the story was grueling. I know the conspiracy theories be wild, and maybe they weren't what you were expecting, but this is it. This is the story that I wanted to tell. This is one that's been haunting me. It's a weirdly personal case for me as well. I do have a lot of personal connection being of the sea. So this one's a weirdly personal one for me. I have a lot of weird personal connections to the Titanic, so it felt good to tell the story in all its glory or infamy. All of it's something.
Yeah, and like you said, all of it's really gory detail for sure. But I think it's a story that, like Bonnie and Clyde, definitely deserves to be told. It is not a small story. There are a lot of people that went into it, and a lot of people that were affected before, from the Titanic, before, after, around it.
No, it's a widespread one. And this affected, it affected a group of people. It affected the world. It changed how nautical law worked. It changed how safety worked. It changed how people perceived travel. And then, of course, World War One hit, and like boats were kind of it. Like that's what you had. Planes were very, very, very new. And it's a weird story. It's an important piece of context, I think. So even if you don't deem the context, everything I said, to be relevant, like, remember, everything in Spookery is a domino, right? And so just because the Titanic happened, something else that we talk about later happened. Mm-hmm. And something changed, and we prevented things, or we didn't prevent things, we made things worse. And so, I don't know, I feel like, did it need to be 6 parts? Maybe not. Maybe I could have cut down some stuff, but I feel good that it was. I feel really good that it was a 6-parter. God, I can't believe I just said I did a 6-parter. Oh, my God, the spirits are coming back. Oh, the weight of my sins is weighing down upon me. But I'm free. I'm free of the Titanic, at least for now.
Yes.
Because is anyone really free of the Titanic, really? Once you have this knowledge, you're cursed. It's the mummy's curse.
Exactly. And it's a story that's immortalized in history. I mean, it's something that, we are just the people talking about it right now in this moment. But there are going to be people that, come after us that are going to continue to discuss this crazy event. And as we know, tons of people before us that also have been fascinated just by this spectacle in history.
Yeah, it's a fascinating piece of history. Whether you're a conspiracy theorist or a historian, or an oceanographic engineer, if you're into ocean liners, or if you're just into boats in general, if you're into how like the water works, if you're into icebergs, like there's.
And here we are, some girls that like spooky things, talking about conspiracy theories, and somehow Titanic is our topic.
Yep, because. I got my category. I got conspiracy theories, and the first thing that popped up is, wouldn't it be funny if you talked about the Olympic and the Titanic swapping? And I was like, oh my God, I should. Not realizing where I would be 6 weeks later.
And here we are.
But yeah, it was just one of those, like, I naturally just, that was my first instinct. The spooky spirits channeled me. They were like, you need to talk about this. I talked about it. And man, here we are.
Yeah.
Standing at the edge. We're at the end of the conspiracy theories, at least for now.
At least for now. Ain't that just the way?
Ain't that just the way? Oh, man, I'm going to sleep so well tonight.
I know. You're, like you said, your official ghosts have left they get to leave you alone for this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now it's time to channel some new spirits, I think. I think it's time to dust off this wheel that's been sitting idle for 6 weeks.
It's time.
It's time. I'm free of conspiracy theories. May the spookery spirits forgive me. I don't know. Maybe they're appeased.
I was going to say, I definitely think they're appeased after this. This was an offering of momentous proportions.
I hope so. I hope they're appeased. I hope they're appeased. If they're not, then look, man, I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want, Spookery spirits.
Gosh, is this your last topic of the season?
Yeah, it is. This is my last one. Oh, God.
That's crazy to think about.
That's, man, I feel bad. I've taken over all of season 2. Like, I literally recorded half of the season in a 6-part miniseries about the Titanic.
Oh my gosh. It's going to be just so funny watching this come out. Like you said, just spooky listeners. All right, here's part 1. Yep. And then part 2. And they're like, okay, part 3, clearly. And then, part 3 comes out. And then there's a part 4. And you're like, oh, okay, that's got to be the last one, right? And then 5 comes out. And you're like, wait, there's another one?
It just keeps coming. I don't think I ever committed to how long this was going to be. I think at the first one, I think I tentatively said it's going to be at least 4. And then after that, I gave up. I was like, the script's not done. And it just keeps going. And I haven't even made it to the conspiracy theories yet. I'm so sorry. And I'm crying in the corner. And here we go. But it's, yeah. So
more than anything, I think with the spookery spirits, I think they need to bless you with something.
Well, we'll see. I have a case that I'd love to do, which is, weird. I've just come off the highs of Titanic, and I'm already like, I already know what I want my next case to be, but the spookery spirits will get to decide. So shall we see what my grand finale is?
One of our bookends of the season.
Yeah, I guess my bookend for my half.
Yeah.
All right, let's spin this wheel, this very dusty wheel.
Yes.
All right, here we go. Oh, spooker spirits, don't let me down. Oh God, this wheel. Oh. Okay.
Okay.
The wheel has landed on stalkers and assassinations. And I love it. And I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Oh, I love it.
I know exactly what I am going to do. And are you ready?
Yeah. Oh, I can hear it in your voice. I can hear that excitement. Oh, gosh.
Okay. Guys. It's going to be a doozy.
Tease us.
No. I gotta commit to the bit first. I can't let the exhaustion of Titanic influence my decisions right now.
Okay, I'm fair.
Exhausted lady is about 85% set on one case.
That's fair. And it's your final case, so you got to give it, like you said, the proper...
The chutzpah.
Yeah.
Okay, but then your fun task is to figure out if I do a stalker or an assassination or both.
I immediately, I was like, she's going to do a stalker. But then I'm like, I don't know. Maybe she's going to do an assassination. I don't know. The eyebrows, I don't know.
I know, I'm waggling my eyebrows like I can. I'm feeling very smug and coy. I think here's a teaser for you. Here's one that I'm willing to commit in my exhausted state. There's been a theme to season 2 so far. The theme remains.
I am about to be bamboozled.
Or maybe not. Maybe I'm just exhausted and I'm talking out of my ass. Who knows?
But that's going to be the ultimate bamboozle, is you telling me that I'm going to be bamboozled, me expecting to be bamboozled, and then not getting bamboozled, having it be the most straightforward case that I've ever had.
Maybe. I think
at this point,
there's a lot of recurring themes in season 2, and I will say I'm committing to one of them.
I am stroking my beard right now, spooky listener.
unless I take a nap and change my mind. But at this point, right after spinning the wheel and landing on something in an exhausted state, that's my guns.
plan.
I'm sticking to it. Tune in next week to see if I commit to the bit.
I know, seriously. Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited.
I'm titillated.
It's not the case I wanted. It was on the one I was channeling, but I think I'm just as happy. I'm just as happy.
I cannot wait. Ma'am. Well.
Yes. Speaking of teasers for next week's episode.
Yeah, I have my unsolved mystery that we need to kind of talk about a little bit.
Yeah. What you got?
So we're going out of the country for this one. This one's an international case, which we're not going to Australia.
Okay.
Let me just tell you that right now.
Okay. Okay. That was my first guess. I was like, okay, so we're not much like I always go to Texas. You always go to Australia.
And we just have our places that we gravitate towards. That's okay.
We do. And do. We're both drawn to the desert.
We are just opposite ends of the world.
Opposite desert.
That's fine. It's all good. But not this time.
Okay.
I don't want to tell you where we're going, but I do think this is one you haven't heard of. This is one that I found, I think, just on a local subreddit. It actually had to be translated for me because it was in a different language. And yeah, a lot of my sources are in different languages. So it's very similar to your unsolved mystery too. So I think it's just going to fit in really well on the Spookery shelf.
I love it. That kind of reminds me a little bit of Hinterkaifeck, where all of my sources were in German. So I'm excited. I can't wait to hear it. Man.
Heck yeah.
It's going to be fantastic. So where can they find us, Alana?
In the meantime, you guys can find us on Instagram, on YouTube, at Spookery Podcast.
Sure can.
And if you want to send us any sort of messages or, correspondence, as you might be so fancy.
Ooh.
Yeah, where can they find us there, lady?
You can correspond us at spookerypodcast@gmail.com.
Please correspond us.
Please. We're in need of a correspondence. Send us a telegram at spookerypodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, send us one of those old-fashioned, cut out of a magazine, ransom note style correspondences. We'd love it.
I don't know if I could handle that right now. Maybe wait a week before you send those.
It just says hi. That's all it says. It's just, but it's in that style.
But it's got a threatening aura.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
A threatening hi.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? I will accept that.
Yeah.
I will accept that.
It'd be cool. It goes in the Spookery Museum.
It does. Here's a threatening fan letter we received one day. No further notes.
No.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for coming with me on this 6-part. I almost said shipwreck, and that's not us.
Oh my God.
That doesn't feel
Too
right.
Too soon.
Oh God! Thank you for coming with us on this 6-part extravaganza. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I am going to go take a nap.
Yes, as you rightfully deserve, ma'am. Oh my gosh.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you liked the Titanic. And, you know, something tells me we're not quite done with it yet.
I'm sure it'll come back to us at some point.
But until next time.
Stay spooky.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. I'm going to go lie down.
Oh,
Goodbye.
man.
Is the mummy's curse outside?
A bird just hit my window.
Oh my fucking God. The mummy's curse.
That was crazy. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I was just like, did that really just happen?
Is the bird okay?
My window's so visible. I don't know why it hit my window. Like it's
It's not the
that's so
plans.
weird.
It was like, ooh, love
Apparently.
that. I would like to land on that.
That was weird.
I hope the bird's
I don't
okay.
know. It's the mummy's curse.
It's the mummy's curse.
Okay. Anyway.
Yes.